The concept of having your first child at 50 won't be such a big deal 20 years from now, because we'll be living to 100 with the physicality of someone who's, say, 45. So why not?
All right. Well,
Okay.
welcome, Zack Varkaris, right?
Okay. Yeah, Varkaris, that's right. That did Benamu.
Benamu.
Benam,
Yep. Well
Benamu.
done. Well done. It's so great to have you on the show today. And I'm
Thank
really
you.
excited to talk about ovarian rejuvenation. And we just started having this chat and we kind of even went overboard because I was like, oh, I didn't hit record yet. I have some fabulous more questions to set up for you,
Sure.
but nobody was listening to us. So we're going to have to rewind a little bit and get to know you. I mean, I have your intro we've read, but tell us a little bit how you got involved with ovarian rejuvenation, and then what does it mean to rejuvenate your ovaries?
It's always very difficult to answer those questions, isn't it? How did you do it? But so let's just start from the beginning. I studied marine and molecular biology at university, and I chose that because it was interesting. That's the only reason I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then ended up graduating and working as a scientist for a few years, but discovered I needed to do something else. And decided to start traveling and set up my own businesses, which were involved in the renewable energy and conservation areas. But there was always a connection with what I was doing. I never gave it up. And so I was always drawing on what we had learned. And so for us, it was working with marine mammals. I always find ways of having links with stuff, but this one was marine mammals are the only other species that have menopause in them, with the exception of humans.
Killer
So,
whales, right?
whale. Well, they're porpoises, yeah, but whales, the orcas, yeah, whales, elephant seals, etc., which is areas that we worked on. Some of it, we were doing more of this sort of less glamorous stuff. We have actually, the two co-founders of the company have actually saved a whale, and we actually saved a minke whale when we were students. Yeah,
Oh,
it
wow.
was in the London
Cool.
Times. Yeah, it was quite fun. So the thing is that we discovered that there was that knowledge that I'd had in the back of my head that was about menopause, and it was all about the marine mammal stuff. And I'd never thought about it again. Parked it to the side, 10 years of doing something else. And I then was presented with a lovely baby girl a few years ago, which was very unexpected.
Oh, oh.
8 years ago now. Yeah, very unexpected, but fantastic. But I was not, should we say, in a financial situation to go, hey, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And
Another
so,
mouth to feed.
yeah, like
Other than
that's
your
what.
own.
And then I ended up doing some sort of day work whilst I was deciding what to do. I was living in Asia at the time, and I met a few biologists purely by chance because my wife's family are marine biologists. So they were talking about the fact that a number of their members of the family or friends had PCOS and premature ovarian failure, and there was an issue with that. And they were worrying
No,
about
that's
whether
PCOS or PCOS is polycystic ovarian
polycystic ovarian
syndrome.
syndrome, and POF is premature ovarian failure. Sorry, I crunched those
Yeah, I
together.
just
So
wanted to make sure if they
yeah,
mean
yeah.
both of them or one of them.
They mentioned one, but they always come together.
Yeah,
So the
premature
chat,
ovarian failure. Yeah,
yeah.
that's serious.
And they were then talking about the fact that this was, and I always confuse how Zephyr said it, but they were always talking about the fact that they thought it was one kind of system, one reason, which was to do with biology, and this is because they're from this racial group, or so on and so forth. And then I sort of remembered what we did with marine mammals and why do we have menopause in these 5 species. Interestingly enough, humans also hair grow as if they were going through the water, whereas other primates don't. So we have a marine link that other primates don't. But unlike most of the rest of the people speaking there, I hadn't spent years in the lab and just working, trying to keep my head above water. But
Mm.
that gives you a different perspective, is what I mean. A very
Mm.
different perspective of how to apply your knowledge. And we're like, well, wait a minute. It should be looking at not trying to change, just adding, shall we say, estrogen to your system to reboost yourself. It's the underlying cause that matters.
Mhm.
That would be far more effective. And then you say, well, why do we have this cause? Why do we need estrogen? Why do we need progesterone? Why do we need testosterone? What is the reasons? Why do women have menstrual cycle, menstrual cycle every 28 days? I mean, what's the point of that? Why do they lose it? It doesn't make sense. Or does it make sense? So what we thought is the things that make us men and women, when we start off as babies, we're little blobs. And we have little bits that are slightly different. And then we differentiate into, men get sort of deep voices and muscles and testicles, and women get hips and breasts and hands, so on. And then they get to a certain age, and then they spread their meiotic reproduction, they spread their genes across. And so there's this sweet spot of, you could argue, where you're at your prime, right? But you're not at one point in your prime. So where are you, at what point in your life are you the most intelligent? People say, oh, it's when you're 21, that's when you're the brightest you can be, and that's why all these great geniuses come up with it. Well, so let's just take Newton, for instance. He came up with gravity and all that stuff, when he was about 20, 18, maybe? No, he didn't. He came up with an initial concept that he then took 25 years to actually put together. So, in other words, the knowledge that you have at 21 isn't necessarily, why are you necessarily more intelligent at that point than you are when you're 41 or 51? Because if you've kept your faculties together and the ability to, you then have years of knowledge and how you can apply that. So this concept of where is your peak, I think is, everyone's so quick to define your areas. This is where you should be. Mm-hmm. Whereas we're saying, wait a minute, you have a period of fertility. And during that period of fertility, you are at any point within your peak. So in other words, you say you could be the best athletes, let's say in their speed in their 20s, but the best athletes for strength are generally in their 30s. Sometimes even things like arm wrestling, they can be in their 50s and they're winning it. And they're like, wait a minute, why are you actually stronger in your 50s than you are in your 30s? What? But it doesn't make sense. And then you sort of realize that it's not just this one slice of this sort of monolith, that everything comes from this angle, that this is what you must be. This is your speed at this area, and you must be at that level. So the one area of human development that we noticed about this was the sexual function and reproduction. So that very clearly there is a point where aging tends to speed up, and that the clearest rate determining step is with women is menopause. Now, everyone's slightly different. I understand it. Not everyone's the same. But statistically, let's just keep the whole hot hand in water, boiling and freezing one together. So what comes back to that is what causes, or what, so you have your menopause area. Oh, well, that's the stopping of menstrual cycle. That's from the follicles coming out of the ovary. So we just went all the way back to the step. We looked at that, and then I managed to get involved with a clinical trial on PRP, on ovarian rejuvenation in California 2018, right at the end. Although the success of that was limited, what we discovered was there were some results. Obviously, you have to be very young, though, to make that work. And this is the other thing, is where we are as a society, where we are biologically, is they clash. So that's where I looked into rejuvenating our ovaries. And that's why I looked into it from that point.
You're right in the sense that the studies that I've seen as well, and some research done by glycan age. I never forget this study that they do. They test the glycans in the body. They give you biological age, and they notice that women are generally younger than men, than the biological age, younger than men, up until the point of menopause. So once they lose their hormones, it's like a hockey stick. They age very quickly. And so then the men, of course, are younger and the women are older. And then they did another test with them where they brought back their hormones, and then they went back down to, I don't know, their normal age, maybe younger, I don't know. But you could bring it back down. And so it's the rejuvenation of the hormones. But what you're doing is saying, why add on top, why add those hormones? Why don't we have our own hormones and that prolonging the life. And it's a very good question. Why do we have menopause? Why do we have to go through this? And why magical age of around 51? Obviously younger in other countries. I mean, there's a range, but around this age, and getting to the sort of quote unquote root cause of the problem and stopping that with rejuvenating the ovaries or extending the life of the ovaries, then perhaps we won't get some of these diseases of aging, or at least slow them down or lower the risk, because we know that osteoporosis and the heart disease and cancer and all these things are more prevalent as we age. And then there's certain diseases that, like Alzheimer's, for example, where a woman is more prone to that than a man. So it all kind of goes down. Well, yeah, we know that, but no one ever says, oh, well, what are we going to do? It's a natural process. It's normal for women to go through menopause. There's no biohacking your way out of it. Like, we're all going to go through it. Maybe we can delay it or make this transition easier, but no matter how good your diet and lifestyle is, eventually your periods will stop if you live long enough, and you will be in the menopause phase. So asking the questions like, yeah, getting to that root cause is really curious. So I'm wondering, what are you saying, maybe in your research or the studies that you're doing, when you extend the lifespan of a woman's ovaries in terms of her health and well-being?
Well, we're in the longevity game, right? So therefore, we're like long term, and we only have 3 years of data. So we don't have enough data to give you full, hey, I can give you a whole lifespan here, and this is what happened over. This person lived an extra 10 years, and this person's had this quality of life. But what we have noticed is as follows: increased energy, muscle tone, skin elasticity, hair thickness, focus. So all of the key points that go through, we classify as aging in both men and women. All of them have improvements. Now, different variables and different levels. The big one, I suppose, is estrogen. We can have a 60% increase in estrogen.
Our own natural estrogen. Are you looking at women in their 40s and they're still kind of cycling or perimenopause, and then they comes back? What does that mean?
Right. Okay. This was careful on what I say here. Okay. So there are two types, right? So we work with perimenopausal women in their late 40s in that area. That's the area that seems to be we can work with. We're scientists, we're not gods, right? We have limitations what we can do. And so we can't bring back someone who's 85 and bring them all the way back. It's just not going to work. But if someone is before the point of no return, where we have to restructure the whole system, we can maybe delay it a little bit, or maybe just improve it a little bit. And that will have an extra couple of years in down the road, maybe another couple of years of extra quality of life. I don't know about you, but I'd take that. I'd take 5 years of vitality and overall. So we've taken this principle, which is just take telomeres, say, for instance, which is 125 years before the cellular structure breaks down. Just keep it really simple. Okay, let's take off 10% for bad behavior, right? So then we have 110, right? 112. Let's see how we can keep, we talked about the whole concept of aging. Well, where are you? If you're 40 or 50 and you're healthy and fit, do a hell of a lot that you can do when you're 20, and you don't have the drama and all that stuff that comes with it. And that means that if I could keep that version of me together, that version can then extend into old age. So that's our principle. It's a long answering question to what you're saying. So we're looking at increased levels of estrogen, decreased levels of tiredness. And again, marking these or monitoring these are very difficult to do, because it's a very labor-intensive process with each patient or the candidate, which we'll come to later on. But each person reacts differently. So some people react with regard to They have inflammation in their joints or loss of muscle mass. So you'll see their muscles start to go. But what we found mostly is improved energy levels, better hair, more supple skin, but very marginally. It's not like sort of it suddenly goes back 20 years or 30 years. It depends on the person as well. And the other one is the hormone balances start to increase at better levels of estrogen, lower FSH,
What
and
about
lower
bone
cortisol.
density? Like, do you noticing less osteoporosis? I mean, or a reversal, maybe osteoporosis or osteopenia with some of these ladies?
We don't have the results of that yet. We've taken the pre-bone density scans. We've done the procedure, and then we're going to take the post-density scans 6 to 8 months afterwards. And that's what we're doing. We're giving it an amount of time because bones take quite a long time to have a difference. So we thought we'd give it time. Things like hormones happen almost within days. And so this is the thing, it's a layered approach of all the different areas that you can have. But yeah, bone density is one of the areas that we market.
This is actually a really great alternative for someone who doesn't or cannot do hormone therapy. I guess it doesn't get more natural than that. It's trying to get your ovaries to start working again or work more optimally. I'm guessing some of your patients, I don't know how many, want to have children in their 40s and 50s, right? Is that the purpose of some of them?
Yes, great question, that one. The approximate number is about 30% of the candidates that have come to us want to have children. Some even in their 60s. But that's because people associate fertility with having children, which it is, but it's psychologically. So when we were putting it out there, it wasn't about longevity or life extension. It was about people thought, oh, I failed at IVF. I need to do this, and I can come to this, and that's what we'll do. And it's the last sort of roll of the dice kind of thing. The thing is that about 30% want to have children. But some of them just maybe want to because they want to have another kid because they enjoy having kids and they want to do it again. There's that kind of mentality. Or there is, I've never had children, I missed my boat and I really want to have children. There's that one. And then there's people saying, I want to keep my functionality that I had before, or I feel like I'm starting to diminish with. And if I can keep a way of keeping my plate spinning for longer, that's a good option for me. That's really the largest member of the candidates that have come to us. And what's interesting is what the people do. A lot of our candidates are scientists, doctors. It's very weird of dealing with a high-level doctor, and you're like, that you can't make any mistakes, and you're consulting with them. You're like, oops, because they know a lot of stuff. But again, that's actually a good thing because we have very proactive candidates that can really help with us and our research and what we're trying to do, because it's still an area where we, for instance, thought at the beginning that it was all about the supplements. That was the thing that was going to help you most. Take lots of pills before you have the procedure and that'll be good. What we've discovered is actually it isn't so much the supplements. It's more about the diet, the exercise, the mental state, or Freudian span as we call it, the emotional state. That's the stuff that really matters. You can't package it, you can't sell it in little bottles and make some money every month, but it takes a lot of time and energy. So you're speaking with someone and they'll think, oh, you're giving me some advice. It's like speaking to a lawyer. You're dealing with 50 years of their knowledge or combined knowledge, and you're getting that in a snapshot. And that's very interesting. So it's the diet and exercise that we found. And so women, yes, have come to us for children. And I think it will probably be a significant portion of the phase 2 that come in that will have an option to have children. So the concept of having your first child at 50 won't be such a big deal 20 years from now, because we'll be living to 100 with the physicality of someone who's, say, 45. So why not?
Let's talk about this future, because one, I'm a little confused because I know by the time you get to your 50s or even a woman in her 60s, I don't know if she's got a couple of eggs left, and that's it. I understood, and you correct me if I'm wrong, by the age of 20, we only got about 20% of our eggs left, 20 years old. It's some ridiculous number like that. And then, well, by the time you're in your 50s, good luck. So when we're talking about extending the life of our ovaries, and what if a woman wants to get pregnant in her 50s? Is there an egg? Is there the probability is so low, but worth a shot? That's going to be one question.
Let me ask you this question first. What's the probability to really healthy, fertile early 20-year-old men and women? What's the statistical likelihood of them conceiving and having a child, do you think, every time they get it on? What do you think?
Oh, it's much higher than in your 50s. That's for sure.
But give me the figure.
Probabilities? I don't know. Somewhere between 50 and 80. I don't know.
80%. The figures given vary, but the consensus is approximately near of 24%.
Wow.
So 1 in every 4 times that there is some form of conception, it then dissipates away within the first few days. Now, I'm sure there'll be lots of people who watch this and then will, oh no, and if they want to message me, we can have something offline, fine. But just assume that's 23%. What is the statistical likelihood of conceiving with IVF?
I have no idea. I think it's quite
11%.
low, no?
11, between 9 to 11%.
Yeah.
Right? And there's also all the drugs involved with that, where you flame the ovaries and so on and so forth. We have at the moment, with our numbers, we have a 6% success of someone having a child. But again, you see, it's such a small sample size that we went through in the first group, 100 people, and it's not 6 people that had children. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not a lot of people to go through. We need to have more data. So I can't give you the exact answer. What I can give you is we have improvements of up to 60% of estrogen levels. So that's the layered part of hormones and hormone rebalancing. So we're getting to that point first. You're talking about being a sports person. If you're running a marathon, you don't just suddenly run a marathon. You have to train for distance. So you have to learn to run 5 miles and then 10 miles, and then you hit the wall and so on and so forth. So with the success rate is, we'll have better understanding with this phase 2 coming through now, because we have a lot more in place than we had 2 years ago. We have the measurements beforehand, the measurements afterwards. We have the understanding now of how to mitigate and improve hormonal balance way before we even get to the point of getting them into the procedure. So we will find out. But
so I think the majority of the women listening don't really want to have babies. Okay. But, there is a niche out there, and that would be an interesting, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about. But
you've got to remember that you've got to be qualified to make sure that you're eligible for the procedure. Okay. So if you've had, say, cancer, you can't do something that will exacerbate your cancer, possibly, right? I'm just saying. So that means that a lot of people that have come to us who want to have children, they can't, because there's certain things they can't do, and that we can't control that. Yes. So our numbers are very, very skewed. There's a very small window that gives us the ability to do that. But within that window, it's quite a high success rate. Again, I don't know what that number is yet. I can give you some more results about June of next year, and that would be something that we'd be able to hopefully see from that. But again, it's a very small sample size. But I wanted to be clear on that.
We'll have a part 2 and follow up. I met a lot of women are thinking, well, how in the world are you rejuvenating these ovaries? And you said you talk about a procedure. What are we talking about? If somebody comes to you and says, I don't want to take HRT, I want to extend the life of my ovaries because I see the benefits for myself as an aging woman. I want to lower my risk for osteoporosis and heart disease and breast cancer and all this, because I understand hormones are important to have, but I want my own. So she comes to you, and what is the steps that she would need to take?
One of the lines that one of the team members came up with is that your longevity is within you. There is nothing that goes into you that is not from you. It is all autologous from your own body. And we take stem cells from your top of your hip bone.
I don't have one anymore. You'd have to take it from the other.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
From the top. And so we would extract a certain number of 60 mils of mesenchymal stem cells. We centrifuge those down. We add to those exosomes from your own body, and we mix them together, and then we re-inject them into the ovaries.
Is it painful?
Well, you're on the sort of an anesthetic, so you wouldn't feel it. No, it's about a 15-minute procedure. But
15 minutes? That's fast.
The actual bit of you, it has to be fast because you've got to take it in, process it, and put it straight back in. It's got to be done real time. So that's the procedure in itself. But there's a lot of stuff that goes before it and after it. So there's just that one bit. It's a one-day outpatient procedure in itself.
Yeah. So what do you do before we arrive to do this procedure?
Right. That starts 90 days before. Someone would contact us. We would have a conversation. One of our team members would chat with them. They'd filled out a form and what they've done. Have they had this and have they done that? X, Y, Z. We would then do a full analysis of their health, which would involve a genetic scan, blood work, Freudian spanner test, interview, all recorded. So we keep that at a level. And then we build a report that gives about a 20-page report that gives you a blueprint of how to maximize your health, given where you are with your genetic markers, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
From that, we then recommend a diet and exercise plan. Now, some people don't need anything because they're really fit and they don't need anything at all, but there's always something you need somewhere. And really, most of it is for us to make sure that we know that we've given them a 90-day window whereby we know that they've been at least within our orbit, that we know that they've not been doing something. We know that they've been relatively healthy, and we take the blood work at the beginning. And then at the end of the 90 days, we take another set, we check the difference. And then from that, then we go into the procedure itself, which would be about a week later. Prior to the procedure, they would do bone density scans. They would do a series of blood markers. They have a mitochondrial test to see what the energy levels are. All of the factors that are associated with fertility and longevity that we discussed about. So things like, I said, bones, muscle mass, hydration, etc. We measure it before. We do a baseline marker. Then they go into the procedure, which, as I said, is a one-day outpatient, but it's over 2 days. You go to our clinic. And then after that, we then monitor you again for a further 9 months. So we want to see what the results are and whether we can tweak it going forward. Because sometimes we realize, oh, if you do this kind of exercise, it might help your healing better. You're talking about having an injury, an operation. This exercise will help you heal. So then straight away after the procedure, 3 days afterwards, we then take another set of tests, exactly the same ones as before, to see what the differences are. And then we have a series of about 6 or 7 times over that period to see where the optimum version is. And I'm not going to give out too many state secrets on what we think right now, but there are patterns that are evolving that whereby you can almost have someone come to us, and if we ask a series of questions, there is a good statistical likelihood that they'll have this kind of outcome. Again, stats, but that's the thing. So it's a lot of it's about the monitoring afterwards as well.
Where is the clinic located?
We have 2 clinics at the moment, both in Mexico. One is in Mexico City in Santa Fe, and the other one's in Tijuana. We will have a 3rd clinic opening that would be much more East Coast based, probably in the Caribbean.
So I'm curious, is it not legal in the US? Like why Mexico?
It's cheaper, number one. A lot cheaper. There's a number of reasons why it's not in the US. One is to do with price. 2 is to do with interest, should we say, vested interest. I mean, autologous stem cells are legal. It's your own body. You can do what you want with it. So, I mean, all of the clinics we work with are established clinics that have Mexican FDA approval. I mean, they're phenomenal.
What's Mexican FDA approval? Is that really a thing?
They've got the Mexican FDA. Yeah, believe you me, they're just as bad as here when it comes to
really
paperwork. Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can they be bribed?
Absolutely. Can anyone be bribed?
Well, no, everyone can be bribed. It's probably a little easier. Yeah, some other countries, but it's interesting. So you got a couple clinics, but you said you'll have another one on the East Coast, probably in the Caribbean. Yeah. And then let's talk about price. Like, how much does this cost?
Well, it varies with different people because of what they need. But the range can be anything from $12,000 to $22,000, all in, everything across the board. It depends on what people need. But on average, it's around about $20,000 in total.
When I think about that's how long, so like you said you can increase estrogen for about 60%. So a woman goes, hooray, my hot flashes are gone and I'm feeling really good. I have a lot of energy. Of course, she's working on her health. Like that's, gold as well, is she's changing her lifestyle and her diet. And then how long is it she going to still be able to produce estrogen? Let's say we're going to just talk about estrogen. I don't know what you've tested in terms of other markers, but how long do you think that will last, her increased levels? Because I know you said only 3 years, I think you've been testing women now.
Yeah, we've think that every up to 2 years, it will have a beneficial effect and then it will start to mitigate. So every 2 years, we'll have to look at boosting it up again. Is what we're looking at. So that's sort of the area that we think of up to every 2 years, 2 to 3 years, depending. Yeah.
So it's a little pricey, and I know in Mexico it's probably cheaper, but do you think the price will come down as you get more people through the clinic, or?
Yes. Number one, is it that pricey? Let's think about this logically. If you say it's 20,000, just say it's 18,000. Let's keep a number simple, and it lasts for 3 years. That amortizes to $6,000 a year. I mean, how many of your audience spend more than $6,000 a year on makeup? I mean, really, quite a lot. And I think nothing.
Well, on a lot of things, even HRTs can be very expensive for some women.
Right. So, in other words, looking at it from that point of view of how long it can be amortized over, it's not expensive. It's actually rather cheap. If that was done in the US, it would be 3 or 4 times the price. And believe you me, it's not worth 3 or 4 times that price at all. But in answer to your question, I would personally like to bring the price as low as possible to make it as available to as many people as possible, because we won't be able to get this on insurance because of the way that they structured it. So it's going to have to be out of pocket health. And that's the issue. So ideally, I'd love to bring that price down by 40%, but that would only happen with economies of scale and having people coming in. And then it's a very good value option, because you're dealing with someone where you'll be monitored for a year. You have the someone to be able to speak to, and then you have the other year of just seeing how well it lasts, and then you can reboot it again. So we would like to bring the price down.
You're right. Again, it depends on so many other things, but it's great that we have an option that I think is really awesome. That this I've never heard before. That's why I was super excited to have this recording. And then I want to go back, just reverse a little bit, because you said before you do a test on Freudian spanum, and we talked about this, but I'm sure this went over people's heads. Let us know, what is this test all about?
We basically have a questionnaire that people fill out, and it has things on it like, on a scale of 1 to 5, love or power, which do you fit into between 1 to 5? You put a cross on it. And then there'll be other questions, and it's sort of a combination of a mental exam, an emotional exam. And from that, we can piece together how you react and who you are as a person. So in other words, if I know that you have a tendency towards some form of, I don't know, you're really precise, that if there is an issue if you move that plant pod in the background 3 inches to the left, that means, that will freak you out. Well, if that freaks you out, that's going to have a biological response. And that biological response is going to mitigate the effectiveness of our procedure. We want to basically get you as best places you can be to do that procedure. So that's what we came up with the term Freudian spanner, but it's a test of understanding how you work. So for instance, we have, say, a candidate comes to us. There's some candidates that I could never work with, because I would just be the worst person to work with them, because I would clash with their personality. So Nancy would do that, right? Nancy is perfect for that, and she would work that area. Or Angel will work in another area, and it just depends on who they are. So that's how the test works. And that's understanding knowing our candidates to give them the best possible result.
It's like I mentioned before, the mind-body connection here, understanding that your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings are having a physiological impact on the body.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important. And a lot of people tend to ignore this when it comes to trying to improve their health, because it's much easier to take a supplement. Like, it's deal with your emotions, forget it. And it's hard to change.
Right.
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 So
Yeah.
if you get a woman who's like that and says she freaks out when the plant is moved to the left, how are you going to help her? Because she's going to have maybe it'll be a worse outcome for the procedure. So you want to probably prime her and help her to overcome this. Or what do you do with that situation?
Say it was a recording here, and these pictures behind me are, in this angle, and I'm like that. And you just say, oh, is that going to be, you highlight something, or you can almost make fun of, not make fun of it, but sort of make it humor, depending on the person. And they'll say, oh, I don't have an issue with that. And it's almost highlighting something so that it takes the edge away. And again, that's a very sort of one-off design, but I'm trying to work out how I would do here with you've suddenly sat back on your chair. I don't know why you sat back on your chair. Is there a reason?
My hip's bothering me.
Right.
I have to keep it not in 90 degrees.
I tell you what I'll do is I'll send you the form, and you can fill it. It's really quick to do, and you have a look at it, and you'll see what it's like, and everyone can do that. We're actually going to do a small test of it. Like 35% of the whole test, you can just do for free and just try it out and see how it feels. And is this me? I mean, we've had people look at reports and go, my God, this is like me. How did you do that? And it's just a group of us put all our minds together. And that's what we call Freudian span. It's our sort of name for it.
This is so cool. I really like that. I want to see some of the results. You have about 100 women, women, obviously anyone who has ovaries, going through this procedure. You've been out, 3 years already testing some of them, and then you're definitely going to have more. So
it's a bit more than 100. We've currently got 274 in some form of area of the procedure at the moment. 57 are right the way through, and we're trying to test the results, with 26 at that final point. So numbers are increasing, but we still don't have enough data yet to really give things that you want to have the answers to, all of them anyway.
Yeah, I'm questioning mine, but I will have a part 2 because I want to see more of the results in a year or so. So do the women have to actually go to Mexico for any other part of the other than the procedure?
A lot of it's done remotely. We have phlebotomists coming to your house, and they go then they're sent to the lab in Florida, which is all US FDA approved. So we have all of that stuff. And then we have obviously a little clinic on the West Coast as well, where you can learn your hugs routines and exercises if you want to. Basically, most of it's done, all of it except the procedures done in the US, although we can take anyone in the world. And a lot of it's done remotely. In other words, if you want to, we can do the consultations via screen, and they're recorded, unless someone's very close by. But generally, at some point, we've met the candidates, but it just depends on where everyone's based. So we have the team spread across the US.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's really cool. So where can someone find out more about the procedure and the whole thing?
Go to our website, which is austinbiotec.com without the H. Go to our website, schedule a consult, and that you'll fill out a form, and one of our team members will contact you, and you'll have like a sort of 40-minute conversation. And from that, you can decide where you want to go. And it's quite very personalized in that way. And that's the only way we've discovered that we can make this. It's too complicated to just have a one size fits all. It just doesn't work that way. So go to the website, look through our website and what we do there, and then just schedule a consult, and we'll answer your questions.
Cool. I didn't ask you ahead of time. Is there any discounts or something special if they say ZORA or something like that, where they're coming from?
If you do a ZORA 20, there we go.
Just keep ZORA. Just keep ZORA. ZORA. It's the simplest thing. ZORA,
you will get a discount on some of the products that we use to help with skin rejuvenation. With regard to it's called marula oil. It's called Kalahari Gold. It's a well-known business based out in Namibia. It's really cool, and I swear by it. I use that on my daughter's hair all the time. It's great. I'll put the links in with you at the end. Yeah, sure. Cool. They're great. She'll be happy to do that. Okay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. That's good. You mentioned something about Rejucvacyte. Is that the name of the procedure or what is that?
Rejucvacyte is the name of the procedure, which means rejuvenating cells,
Mhm.
rejuvecyte. Rejucvacyte for the ovaries, but it also can be used to rejuvecyte many types of organs, but that's what it's called, rejuvecyte, yeah.
Oh, it'll be interesting. Yeah, we'll see actually what else you can rejuvenate in the future. Let's tackle the ovaries
I'm
first.
not telling you anything more right now because it's that we could do that offline because you'll like it. It's fun. But,
Oh, exciting. Yeah, of course one thing leads to a next. So
right.
I'm going to have links to how to find you, Austin Biotech, emailing you as well, how to schedule a consult. So if anybody wants to go to the show notes, make sure you say ZORA so we know get a little discount. And before I let you go, do you have any last words for a woman going through the menopause transition? Save your ovaries.
I've suddenly got brain fog. Look at that. You can delay. That's
Hmm.
it. Delay
Oh,
because it's inevitable, but delay.
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zack, for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time for an update.
Okay. Thank you.